Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's Global Pandemic Show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan. It's my honor to convene this weekly conversation around various aspects of the pandemic. We've talked about the health crisis, the financial crisis. We've talked about innovation during the crisis, and we're going to tackle that topic tonight with a fabulous episode, Launching While Female. Our guest is Suzanne Althoff, author of Launching While Female, Smashing the System That Holds Women Entrepreneurs Back. It's an expose of the gender gap in entrepreneurship and a roadmap for a more inclusive and economically successful future for us all. Please ask us anything. Suzanne is an author, of course, and a professor at Emerson College's publishing division. And we are going to give you a chance to meet her in just a moment. And thank you, everybody, for being here with us. Hi, everyone. I'm Sree. You're live right now on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on LinkedIn. If you're watching us on replay, thank you for watching us as well. Please tag a friend, tell them that they can join us right now, watch us live, or watch us later. If you haven't seen the show, we are on several times a month talking about various aspects of the pandemic. And we'll just tell you a little bit about the show. In our first 285 episodes, we've had 545 guests, and we've had 311 of them have been women. Yes, we did count. And guests from 75 cities and 22 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. And we do this in partnership with Scroll.in and Scroll Global. And our archives are on youtube.com. Please check out SreeNet. Please subscribe. Please hit share. And please sign up for those notifications. Our producers are Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31, who will be live tweeting throughout, and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon, and she will be sharing as well. And she's joining us from New Delhi, India, and Rose is in Connecticut, and I am in New York. This is all brought to you by Digimentors, the company that I'm a co-founder of and CEO of. We do shows like this, podcasts, talk shows. We do webinars, summits, conferences, and we'd love to talk to you about your upcoming event or any consulting opportunities. And just a fun fact, because we haven't had a chance to tell you since she had this incredible accomplishment, Maria Ressa, who was our guest in July 2020, has won, as you all know, the Nobel Peace Prize this year, one of the co-winners of the Nobel Peace Prize. We're so excited about her. She was interviewed by me and Rose Horowitz, our producer, and you can go back and find this in our archives. And we're so proud of Maria and all our guests. You don't have to win a Nobel Prize to get kudos from us. We also want to tell you that if you are a subscriber to my newsletter, it should be in your inbox, and it's called the Sree Sunday Note, and it's the sreenet.substack.com. And this week's issue is why I signed the Work Remotely Forever pledge. And I know this is not for every company, but our company did sign this. And I'd love to hear from you, whether you're pro-office or pro-working from home. There's not one size fits all for everybody, but there's a commitment our company made. And our newsletter is sponsored by Armory Square Ventures. Creativity can come from anywhere. Please check them out. They're doing incredible work bringing funding to startups in places that are off the beaten path and so much more. So please check out Armory Square Ventures. And we also want to tell you about a new film that's coming out on November 19th. And it's from a former guest of the show twice. Manisha Koirala, the big Bollywood star, is in India Sweets and Spices. And I'm going to play you the trailer right now.
I'm so happy you're home, Alia. Did you cut your hair?
Yes.
Well, it'll grow back.
My mom, Queen of Ruby Hill. Aunties, all they do is sit around and gossip.
You too. When should we start our wedding shopping, eh?
God, that's so annoying.
Hey, Alia, your mom needs you to go to the Indian store to buy some biscuits for the party.
I'm relaxing.
I'm looking for some biscuits.
Mom, where are the biscuits?
You're restocking them, Varun.
We're throwing this dinner thing next Saturday. You're new in town. You guys should come.
You sure your parents won't mind?
You invited who? A local shopkeeper. We are running a charity service, huh?
Sure, Aunties Without Borders. You guys came.
Sheila, is this really you? It's me, Bhairavi, Delhi University.
How things have changed since then.
Indeed. Your mother was incredibly brave.
What was this, like a feminist club or something?
Or something.
Parents are full of surprises. Our parents are full of
Okay.
You kept it a secret. Why would you act like it's something embarrassing?
It's not who I am anymore.
How nice to not have to worry about money.
I'm nothing like these.
No, you're exactly like these people.
Back then, my life was complicated. I want your life to be simple, easy.
That's not what I want. What if we are who we are and then everything changes and we don't recognize ourselves anymore?
You live in a strange world.
Yep. Your kid got caught having a three-way in the school gym. Yours failed his physics final and cried in front of the entire class. Yours is actually just a pothead. We all think she's pretty cool.
Savage.
All right, November 19th at theaters everywhere. Please check it out, and congrats to our good friend Manisha Koirala for this another great role that she's in. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship and the role that women play in various startups and how they can be better startup founders and how all of us can support them. So we're very excited to bring you our guest. Our guest is Suzanne Althoff, who is the author of Launching While Female, Smashing the System That Holds Women Entrepreneurs Back. And she is a professor at the Emerson College Publishing Division. And we are thrilled that she is able to join us here today. So, hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Sree. So great to see you.
Great to see you. And we should tell everybody right off the bat that we've known each other for a couple of decades now, almost 3 decades, because we were classmates in grad school at Columbia Journalism School. And I'm so proud of everything you've done and where all the heights you have reached, because we're going to tell people about your career as well. And now you're a professor and also the author of this great book. This is the paperback edition, lands this week, and there it is, Launching While Female. My first question, however, is not about any of that. Tell us how you are, how you've been through the pandemic, and where you're calling in from tonight.
Thank you, Sree. It's so wonderful to see you. And you have now given away my age by telling everyone that we know each other. I think you said 3 decades. So yes, we've known each other for
you were famous for being only 9 in grad school. Okay.
Yes, they made an exception and let me in very early. I consider myself super lucky that I knew you when you were not famous, and I knew you when you were young. And so yeah, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. So you asked where I'm calling from and how I'm doing. I am in Somerville, Massachusetts, just north of Boston. And so as far as how I'm doing, we got good COVID related news in the United States today. I heard that the FDA is approving a vaccination for kids ages 5 to 11. And this is really big for me. It's big for my household. I have a 10-year-old, and we have been operating with, staying at home and not going out and really limiting what we do because of the lack of a vaccine for my son. So that has been great news. I can't wait. And I'm hoping that this is a corner that we can turn when this happens. Just at how am I doing? I feel really fortunate that I've been able to work the entire time during the pandemic, and I've learned how to work remotely. And this has been relevant to me both for my as a teacher and in entrepreneurship, sort of how to reach people in different ways. Reaching people who have caregiving responsibilities or children at home or who can't travel, but they still finding a way to reach out to them.
And that's so important, of course. And I know that you will tell us how entrepreneurs make that work. Just in your own case, you and I are both lucky that we can in fact work remotely. I already heard from someone who read my newsletter about why I signed the working from home forever pledge for my company, saying that not everybody's as lucky to do that, and that's absolutely true. I know it's a privilege for those of us who are able to work from home, those of us who are able to teach from home, or when it was appropriate in socially distanced settings. You'll tell us what's happening at Emerson, but not everybody has that opportunity. So talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the book.
Absolutely. So I returned to the in-person classroom in fall of this year, and it's been, I will be honest, it has not been easy. Keeping students 3 feet apart, but yet having them work in groups and having them have a conversation has been really challenging. And I feel like I got really good at Zoom, and I got really good at breakout rooms, and I got really good at leading groups of students through a remote classroom. So now I feel like I'm learning something new, trying to figure out the socially distanced classroom. Emerson is great. They require face masks for everyone. Everyone had to be vaccinated, and we are tested once a week. So I think as far as if you have to have a work situation where you're coming back, it's a great situation that they've set up for us.
And of course, not everybody has that, and that makes it hard for everyone.
Of course.
So tell us a little bit about the book and the genesis of it. And this is the paperback. You already had the hardcover earlier this year, and tell us how it all came together.
Absolutely. Right. So I'm writing about entrepreneurship's gender gap, and for people who don't know what this means, it means that there is a difference in who is participating in the entrepreneurial space, both in the United States and around the globe. And it breaks down by gender. It also breaks down by race and ethnicity and LGBTQ status and other identities. But for my book, I examine gender. In the United States and in elsewhere, we see women launching fewer companies than men. Their companies don't grow as quickly. They don't hire as many employees, and their companies overall make less revenue. And significantly, their companies also have a lot less access to capital, and you need capital to grow your company. So what this means is we have an uneven playing field in the entrepreneurial space. We're missing out on innovation, on jobs. The economy is not as strong as it is because of these hurdles that entrepreneurs face. So I wanted to set out and interview people who are women and non-binary entrepreneurs. You mentioned we went to journalism school together. I wanted to use my journalism skills to talk to those entrepreneurs and ask them, what hurdles did you encounter? How did you get around them? How did you find success? And then importantly, I wanted them to tell me their wish list. What could we do to make changes to the entrepreneurial systems to make it more inclusive, more welcoming to others, and have fuller entrepreneurial participation?
Excellent. Before we continue, we have some people who are saying hello, and they're watching from around the world. Everyone, please say hi. Tell us how your day's going, your thoughts on female entrepreneurship, and also please tag a friend who would be interested in this topic. They can watch live or watch later. So let's see who are all joined us. Here's Jonathan Borstein, who is watching from the East Village, and he says, happy birthday to me 2 days ahead. This Thursday is my birthday. And Jonathan's watched all 291 episodes of the show because I was away from my own show, and Rose and others stepped in as guest hosts. Even I've not watched 291 episodes, but Jonathan has. So thank you very much, Jonathan, for watching. Stephen Kaplan's watching from Ramsey, New Jersey, another person on our Digimentors team. This sounds like a show that needs an appearance by Women to Follow founder and our colleague Rose Horowitz, who is usually behind the scenes. And hi, Rose. She's very much part of this. And Mark Summer is watching from Durham, North Carolina. And it's his brother's birthday. He's a 1969 baby. I'm a 1970 baby. I turned 50 during the pandemic, which is a whole other story. And Paula Kiger is watching on YouTube from Tallahassee, Florida. Hi, Paula, also on our team. Thank you so much for watching and for participating. And she says that she wishes she could stay longer, and best of luck with the launch. This is the paperback launch for Suzanne, but Paula knows that everybody can watch as soon as we're done on all of these channels, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. It will play automatically, so she can watch. And we have some questions coming in, and Jan's watching from Iowa. Thank you for watching. And Anand's watching in Bangalore. Hi, Anand. Thank you for watching. Please post your questions. There are already some coming in that I will pose to Suzanne in just a few minutes. So ask your questions, tell us your thoughts, and we all certainly want to see more female founders and entrepreneurs. And I know that you brought a graphic for us to see, so maybe that's we can start with that as a excuse to talk about some of the things that you wanted us to talk about. So I'll pull up the graphic and you can share your thoughts.
Absolutely. So what we're looking at is a graphic of the amount of venture capital investment that women-founded companies receive. You'll see this graphic goes from 2016 to right up to August of this year. The bottom segment is the significant one for our conversation today, the one that's the lighter red. It shows the percentage of venture capital in the United States that goes to startups founded only by women. You can see that it has never, 3.3% is the highest figure, and it's actually gone down during the pandemic this year. It's the lowest it's been since 2016. So what this means is some entrepreneurs, certainly not all, some entrepreneurs seek out venture capital investment to start and to grow their companies. It's especially suited for companies that are expecting rapid, significant growth. There is a lot of bias and discrimination in the venture capital investment community, which leads us to figures like this, with women-founded startups only receiving 3% or 2% of venture capital investment. And the numbers are, there's equally bleak numbers for bank loans, both amount of bank loans that women and non-binary entrepreneurs receive and the higher interest rates they pay. And we also see this for people of color, both lower venture capital investment and bank loans and other financial tools. So this is one of several hurdles that entrepreneurs are encountering, and it's as I said, not every company is suited for venture capital investment, but it's a hard data point for us to look at, and it's one of many examples of the hurdles that entrepreneurs face. So I mentioned investment.
Before we go on, Suzanne, I just want to just kind of underline how dramatic that graphic is and upsetting, because if you look at this, that bright red at the bottom is female only. And after all the talk, after all the hard work, after all the attention, after all the pledges, after all the resources put into this, we are worse off than we were in 2016. And let's say, okay, it's the pandemic. So, but look at 2020 is worse than, or 29, look at any of these numbers. How is it possible that we're in that situation? And even the male-female co-founded, those numbers aren't anywhere where they should be. And I think things can get muddled in that particular blending, and who's a co-founder, et cetera. We can talk about that. But this female only is shocking, upsetting. Tell me how we ended up here. And am I right to be this upset?
Please, yes, get angry. It should make everyone furious to see these numbers, and furious that it's like you said, there's a lot of talk, there's pledges to do better. But as we can see in 2021, it's gone down. So you ask, how did we get here? There's so many factors. So one big factor is who are investors. In the United States, and you see this in other countries as well, most of the venture capital investors right now in the United States are white men. Studies have been done that show most of them have gone to Harvard or Stanford. They belong to the same clubs. They have the same networks. And research has shown that they tend to invest in entrepreneurs who look like them, who sound like them, who came from their schools, who belong to their clubs, and entrepreneurs, especially who are doing products and building companies that they can relate to, and that they say like, oh yes, I can see the need. I can understand why someone would want to have, a Facebook or the next Facebook. So that's one thing that a lot of attention is being paid to right now. All Raise is one group that is really trying to diversify who are venture capital's investors in the United States. We need more women investors. We need more investors of color. We need more non-binary investors. We need different people making decisions about what startups are worthwhile. This has nothing to do with merit, and that's something that I talk about in my book. I look at this myth of meritocracy, and I bring it up because it just on Twitter over the weekend there was a high-profile CEO and co-founder. He was a white male. I'm not going to name him because I don't want to give him any more attention, but he made a tweet to the effect of, let's say if you're a woman founder or a woman founder of color or a queer woman founder of color, if you're in that situation and you're not receiving investment from venture capitalists, it's probably because your business ideas are not good. And he said that that's the case because investors are numbers people. They're data driven. They're going to invest in the companies that have the biggest potential for a return. And, of course, there's not bias, this person said. It means your business ideas are not good. And so thankfully, his tweet was met with a lot of quick response. People pointed out the data to him, told him, no, that's not the case at all. There's pattern recognition, for example. Investors like people who remind them of themselves. There's bias that investors have. When I was doing interviews for my book, I heard entrepreneurs tell me, I pitched to an investor and they said, I don't really see I don't think there's a need for emergency childcare services. I don't get that. Or, ask questions like, I don't think Black hair care is a big market. They're revealing what they feel comfortable with and what the industries that they don't know. And, in a way that's okay. You're not expected to be an expert in everything, but we need more investors at the table because we can't just have one kind of investor with one kind of perspective.
So important. And so you're so right about that. I just want to point out that one of the reasons why Marissa Mayer was able to be CEO at Yahoo when she took over was that she was, lauded for coming back to work after 28 days or something ridiculous like that. That's because she had a full-time nursery in the office next door, and she had full-time nanny or maybe multiple nannies and was able to do that. And we need an understanding by these men mostly of the various things it takes for women to be able to work in the workplace. Start a company is hard, as I know myself, but the kind of ambition that these women that aren't getting funded have is so much higher, broader. They want to change the world, make it better, make money along the way, and they have difficult time, don't they, Suzanne?
Absolutely. And Sree, I'm glad you point out they want to make money. I think that's a really important thing. I mean, social entrepreneurship is great, and entrepreneurial ventures that want to bring good in the world, and those are important, of course. But there's nothing wrong with the entrepreneur who wants to just set out and make a ton of money, especially, let's say, a Black entrepreneur who wants to build generational wealth. This is a wonderful goal, and we should support this. That's something that's so why I find entrepreneurship so appealing. Not only are we talking about bringing more innovation to the world, not only are we talking about building new companies and creating more jobs, but we are talking about building wealth for groups that previously have not had access to that wealth, whether it's the racial wealth gap, also the gender pay gap and the racial pay gap. There are a host of reasons why people have not been able to accumulate wealth, and bringing full entrepreneurial participation is one way to address that.
What are the things keeping us from having that participation? You mentioned some of them, but what are some other factors?
Right. So I mentioned lack of startup capital. That's huge. And I mentioned venture capital and bank loans. I want to mention one other way, and I mentioned the wage gap and as well. Student loan debt is also a part of this picture. Researchers at Northeastern have shown that if you have student debt, you're less likely to start your own business. If you do end up starting a business and you have student debt, the business is slower to grow. So this is significant for our conversation because women hold more student debt than men in the United States, and Black women hold the most student debt of all. So this is another part of, I'm really interested in the conversations we're having in this country about student debt relief. And I don't think we do enough to talk about how it could unlock entrepreneurial potential. So money is huge. When in doing my interviews, I also heard again and again that women entrepreneurs and non-binary entrepreneurs have a shortage of mentors and sponsors, especially mentors and sponsors who look like them, who share their race or their gender. They report a lack of role models, especially role models in the media. We still put way too many Mark Zuckerberg types on the covers of our business magazines and in our movies and other places. The women I spoke to also talked about microaggressions. This is their ideas being dismissed or belittled, hearing racist comments or sexist comments. I heard lots of cases of sexual harassment and assault. Some of these came out in 2017 when we heard more about the Me Too movement. And the people I spoke to said there's still investors, there's still bankers, there's still vendors who are engaging in harassment and assault, and their cases have not been brought to the open.
Thank you. We have lots of questions coming in. Mark from North Carolina asks, is part of the problem that the financing organizations are overly male dominated? I mean, you touched upon this a little bit, but I know there's an effort among the VC firms to recruit women and have women partners and women LPs and things like that.
Absolutely, yes. I mentioned All Raise already. They are doing a great job in providing training for people who could, in 5 or 10 years' time, become the primary decision maker in a venture capital firm. But yes, we're seeing it at banking as well. This is related to the pandemic. The U.S. government, of course, was giving out loans, has been giving out loans during the pandemic to help businesses survive, make payroll. Especially early reports during the pandemic showed that small businesses owned by women and by people of color were not getting their fair share of these loans from the government. And most often the case was that these entrepreneurs don't have long-lasting relationships with the bankers who were administering these loans. So much of our world, right, is a network world. It's who you know, it's who feels comfortable with you. And so if you are an entrepreneur who is struggling to break into some of these spaces, it has real effects for you.
Thank you. And here is the organization you mentioned, All Raise, RAISE, from like raising funds for your company. And people should check out the organization, allraise.org. We are here to amplify female voices, accelerate their success, and create a tech culture where women are leading, shaping, and funding the future. So this looks great. It's obviously non-profit. They have master classes and so much more going on here. So everybody should check that out.
Yes. And they do data collection as well, which is really important, right? I mean, you need hard data to show people that this is not just anecdotal stories, that there is this entrepreneurial gender gap and it's real, and entrepreneurs of color as well are being don't have the access to the tools and support that they need.
Thank you. And we'll mention another organization that we had a chance to meet. The founder of Maithili Shankaran was on a show earlier, and this is called the Neythri Futures Fund. You can see the spelling Neythri, and accelerating the impact of South Asian female trailblazers. So a new wave of startup investing that's done by South Asian women. So this is another, just an example of many different networks like this, Suzanne, that people should be looking into.
Yeah. Sree, can I also mention angel investing? We've spent so much time now talking about venture capital investment. So angel investment is usually we're describing individual investors who are investing their own money. There is a lot of work going on, like Pipeline Angels, for example, is one organization teaching people to what would it mean to be an angel investor, and what would it mean to do your research into these companies, how to invest with confidence. There is a lot of hope that as more women build wealth and as more women begin investing that wealth, that this will help underrepresented entrepreneurs. There is research that looks promising that says that women, when they act as investors, as an angel investors, that they tend to take the gender and race of the entrepreneur into consideration. They're looking more holistically at where their money is going than just, what is the product, or do I think it will have a great return?
Thank you. That was a question from North Carolina. Let's go to Iowa. And Jan asks, what governmental help or policies could be made for women in this kind of business arena?
Yeah. So Jan, if I could, I want to talk about something that happened in the past, but just to show the example of the power of government intervention. And the reason why I want to go to the past is because they're in October 25th, 1988. So we just passed the anniversary. On October 25th, 1988, we signed the Women's Business Ownership Act. This act did a number of things to support women entrepreneurs. One thing that it did, it opened up business loans to women entrepreneurs. Previously, women needed a male co-signer in many states if they wanted to get a business loan. And this legislation changed that. It also set up centers around the country to provide training to women entrepreneurs. So we've seen in the past that the government can get involved and make a difference. And we need, the Small Business Administration is working to help women entrepreneurs and underrepresented entrepreneurs. We need more of that. Another example is we need governments.
Go to the other example. I'm going to ask you about the signing of the loans. How recent was this? It sounds like something out of Saudi Arabia or someplace like that. So which century was this, and how long?
Yes.
What moved them to change that rule in America?
Yeah, this was 1988. So 1988 was the
not
year
1788 or 1888, but 1988. Not everywhere, but women in many states needed a man to co-sign a loan if it's for a business. And I guess that's what you would take most loans for, unless it was for college or something.
But right, these were business loans. These were not personal loans. I read through the testimony of the women who testified in front of Congress to say why this was why we shouldn't have male co-signatures required. These were incredibly successful business owners who had to bring in sons or brothers or fathers, in some cases, the people who had no business knowledge or business experience, but they had the right gender, and so that they needed their signature.
I need a face palm emoji to get through this. It's 1988. Just think about that, folks. And I'm sure, there were politicians who opposed changing that law, who supported the status quo. And that's why it takes, for glass ceilings to break, it takes a lot of different people fighting hard to make that possible. So thank you for that. I know you're going to give us another example.
Sree, remind me what
of government.
government. Oh my goodness, what was I can't remember the example what I was going to say, but I'll point to a government. Oh yes, I know what it was. It was about contracting. So this is both federal level, state level, local level. When governments make pledges to spend their money, to issue their contracts to women-owned businesses, businesses owned by people of color, that makes a big difference. So I told you I'm in Somerville. I'm just north of Boston. Boston has a pretty dismal record when it comes to the local, the government contracts that are given to women-owned businesses and businesses of color. Other states and other cities do a better job. But so, this is something we can all do. We can pressure people running for mayor, people running for governor, say this is a priority for me. I want you to pledge that this is how the government is going to spend our money when it hires, plumbing contractors and when it builds roads and all the things that the government needs to buy. So this would make a difference. On internationally, different countries have shown that government subsidized childcare moves the needle significantly on women's participation in entrepreneurship, right? So this is no surprise with the pandemic and all of our experiences with childcare and how broken the childcare system is. But when women don't have to worry about picking up a 2-year-old from somewhere, they can devote that energy and that time to building a business and creating jobs. That was a key component of the researchers who found this. These were women who were building businesses and creating jobs because they had government subsidized childcare to rely on.
Thank you. And by the way, Jan also said, wow, 1988. And Jonathan says, when I fact-checked a minor detail for an article I wrote, I found that the actual brains behind a successful business was not the set of brothers who were, part of this, but rather one of the brothers' wives. Just kind of hard to think that that's not unusual, that this kind of thing would happen. And just imagine being the woman who has to designate a son or a father or a husband who isn't involved in the business in order to get that loan or to make progress as they need. Mark asks another question. Do you feel women are being driven into stereotypical jobs, even in entrepreneurship, such as education, nursing type businesses, food related things? I feel like I want to hear your answer, but I feel like it's you can't win either way. If you suggest like you said, black hair business and you're a woman, that's not even on areas where you may have so-called domain expertise, that may not be a big enough industry for you in terms of the chance to get money and get funding.
Yes. So Mark raises a really important point. Yes. I mean, we are seeing success in, Whitney Wolfe Herd, who is the co-founder and CEO of Bumble, the dating app. She's had incredible financial success. She should be celebrated. She's done wonderful things, but it's a dating app. So yes, there are women who are in retail industries, fashion, home, have found an easier road in. In my interviews, I heard so frequently from women who were starting tech companies or anything in the STEM field that the hill was so much steeper for them to climb. I mentioned microaggressions. These entrepreneurs were constantly having their expertise questioned. I interviewed one founder, a woman founder who co-founded a company with 2 men, and it was a tech company, and she had a lot of the technical expertise. When they would go to talk to investors and others, the investors would direct all of their questions to the male co-founders. And, they'd have to politely say, no, direct your question this way. And again and again, the investors would direct their questions to the men founders in the room. Black women especially told me that their tech expertise was questioned. A 1-hour meeting with an investor, they would have 30 minutes of that meeting spent being grilled on, how do you know this? Where did you get your training? What's your work experience like? And, these are just not the questions you would a male founder would experience. So that was a really interesting thing with my interviews, to talk to entrepreneurs who co-founded companies with men, or a racially diverse founding team. That was a really interesting time for people to put their experiences and how they are treated side by side with someone else. And, what is it like when I pitch the company and I'm a woman to a room of investors, and then tomorrow when my male co-founder pitches the company, what kind of reaction do we get, and how is that different?
And can you give us a couple of examples? You said in terms of drilling down or kind of questioning a woman where a man would not be asked the same questions. Any other horrifying things?
There's a startup called Next Gen Jane, which makes a smart tampon. This is a tampon that would test whether or not, for example, that you have endometriosis. So it's testing menstrual fluid. That was co-founded by a man and a woman. The woman founder has received advice from advisors. Maybe your male partner should be doing the pitches, because male investors are going to be uncomfortable hearing you talk about menstrual fluid. We would just never say to a male founder, maybe you should let your woman co-founder take over, because people are going to be uncomfortable by you and uncomfortable hearing you say certain words.
Can I just sit here in stunned silence? Is that okay? At the end of a very long day for you, I'm just, as I said, I'm kind of stunned into being speechless here, which is not very common for me. So yes. I want everybody to go out and get this book. It's launching while female. This is the paperback edition, so that it's just dropped this week, which is very exciting. I do have some more questions, but we want to tell everybody who's watching, if you have a question or a comment or there's a chance to ask an expert on entrepreneurship, about entrepreneurship, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Jan also says, I found that even on a local level, sometimes female comments, ideas do not get the proper recognition until a male hitchhikes on it. Now, I've not heard that term, but that I can picture it perfectly, what it means to hitchhike on a woman's comments. So it sounds to me like these are problems not unique to entrepreneurship. It's about male-female dynamics in the workplace. It's about how women are seen with regard to being an authority figure or someone who's authoritative in their knowledge. So how much of this is about the idiosyncrasies of the entrepreneurship world, and how much of it is just kind of office politics gone completely crazy?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. It's not that the entrepreneurial space has some weird, crazy things going on that we don't see in other parts of the business world or the work world. It's just sort of hyper exaggerated because you're talking about founders and CEOs, and when a founder or CEO is a woman or a person of color or a queer person, they get this heightened level of microaggressions, heightened scrutiny, people saying, do you belong here? But so just like in the workplace, though, there's a role for allies. We need to, when we overhear people making comments about or hitchhiking a conversation, we need to bring the conversation back to whether it's the woman employee or the woman CEO, and make sure that she is heard and that she is celebrated. I talk a lot when I talk about my book about what consumers can do. The Shop Your Values movement has a role here. We can pledge that we are going to spend more of our money on businesses owned by women and businesses owned by people of color. There are some great groups that offer directories to help you find these businesses. One of my favorites is a nonprofit in Atlanta called Buy From a Black Woman. And they have an online directory where you can search different businesses. There's another one called Support Your Ladies. So, buying from these companies, but then also talking about these companies, talking about them on social media and elsewhere, and, helping to push back against the narrative that says we want the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world to succeed. And we can do a part and sort of elevate other kinds of entrepreneurs. And this is so important for children as well, to see us elevating different kinds of entrepreneurs.
I think as a consumer, we all do have that role to play. I'll just give you an example. If people are starting podcasts, they're familiar with something called Anchor.fm, which takes your podcast and then puts it on all the platforms, right, on Apple and Spotify and all of that. And Spotify bought that company, so everything that they do is now free and easy to access. But when we work on podcasts, we work with a company called PodPal, PODPAL, which is out of Atlanta, is a Black-owned business. And as a consumer, we wanted to support a Black-owned business that does, in fact, so many better features than Anchor.fm. And so we're using that now, and we're proud to be able to do that. We'd love to see other examples of, when everything's equal, where's a chance to support a group, a minority group. We'd love to be able to do that. So there are other instances where people support immigrants or women of color or any of those different kind of factors, or queer founders, et cetera. Here's a comment that came in. How do you explain Indra Nui's success as the leader of PepsiCo? What went in her favor that could be replicated for other women? And I'll just say here that Indra, in fact, has an invitation to come and speak to us on our show. Indra is a good friend. I've known her for many decades as well, and super proud as a fellow Indian American to see where she has reached, the absolute pinnacle of American success. And I don't want to put Suzanne on the spot to ask her to answer for all of Indra's success, but Indra will also tell you she benefited from having family that was able to help her raise her kids so that she could go to conferences, be at work late, all of those kinds of things that not everybody has access to. And that was just one of her factors in success. She also talks about, and she has a big book out right now on this, but also mentors and role models, both male and female, who had roles to play, allies who helped her and led to her great success.
Yeah, Sree, you answered it for me and did a fabulous job. I don't have specifics to add about this case, but I do want to underline that there, of course, I don't mean to leave the impression that there are not successful women entrepreneurs and women CEOs and CEOs and entrepreneurs of color. Absolutely, there are those who find incredible success. The argument that I'm making is we should see so many more. We are leaving great ideas. We are missing out on jobs. We are missing out on innovation because we don't have full entrepreneurial participation. There's technologies that just don't exist because we have deprived certain groups of founders of investment, or founder dollars, of startup capital. I think that's an important point, that it's not just, yes, the founder is missing out, but we as a society are missing out because we don't have these inventions, these patents, these jobs.
And one of the things we'll do before we go is give you a chance to be a little immodest and tell us about the features of the book and the parts of the book that we haven't talked about yet, so that everybody can go out and get it. But I do know that you brought another chart for us. So tell us about this one.
Yes. So this is a really, again, a frustrating number. I discussed about the fact that venture capitalists are overwhelmingly white and male. This is data that was put together by PitchBook as well as All Raise. That's the nonprofit I mentioned. They in 2019, they released a great set of data that really looked at who are the decision makers in venture capital. And it really, data like this is so important to really push the conversation forward. And some countries have made pledges, countrywide pledges, to do better in the investment community. There's no such countrywide pledge in the United States, but there's nothing stopping. There could be there needs to be pressure.
All right, let's go to one more comment from Mark, and then we'll start wrapping up. Some of our new entrepreneurs are over 50, which means it can be an issue of ageism and sexism. I've heard this segment of the population is not getting the respect it deserves, though they control the bulk of the spending power. So let's talk about that rather quickly, I'm afraid. But our vision of, at least in the technology business, the founder is under 30, is graduated from Stanford, is a tech bro, for better term, lack of a better term, and that leaves out so many people with experience, knowledge, background, contacts, all of that that they can bring to the table, even if they're not 27 and from Stanford.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is a bias toward these 20-year-old. A lot of people say, oh, the 20-year-old white guy in a hoodie. Everyone is chasing that person and ignoring, as you say, an entrepreneur who is older, has much more experience, has wisdom. I'm a fan of the entrepreneur Cindy Gallup. She is the founder and CEO of a sex tech company called Make Love Not Porn. She's 61. She speaks out frequently about ageism, not just ageism in the entrepreneurial space, but ageism in the work world in general. But 100% that. And this is just yet another example of the biases and the discrimination that is leaving certain groups on the sidelines.
As some of our viewers know that when I famously lost my job at the Met because of financial difficulty at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where I was the chief digital officer, I wrote and talked a lot about losing your job. And one of the things I learned is that when I went out for other jobs, including from perhaps the most progressive organization in the land, they couldn't understand what a 46-year-old could know about technology or digital stuff. It was fascinating. And so that ageism, there was ageism in the room, I like to say, some from me saying that I was interviewed by some children, though I didn't say that to their face. And from them, they just couldn't understand what a 46-year-old then could know. And here I am now 5 years later, even older and even less viable in the eyes of some folks. And Jonathan, will give him the last word on this, as I was just the recipient of a classic bit of ageist brat-splaining, term I've not heard, but I, again, can picture it perfectly. So like there's mansplaining, there's brat-splaining, and though I'm sure in that term itself, there is our own reverse ageism in there too. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and tell folks about some other shows coming up, Suzanne. But I want you to think for a minute about when we come back. Please tell us two things. One is your thoughts on where we are with Facebook and all that's going on there, and second, about your book one more time. Be a little more marketing-y than you're used to, and we'll come right back to you. So please stand by, and we'll be right back with Suzanne. Isn't that a fabulous conversation that we're still not done, but please feel free to ask her more questions. And of course, we want everybody to get her book, Launching While Female. And I want to tell everybody, as always, that we love your support. Thank you for being part of this show. Please tag a friend right now. Anyone, male or female, who would learn from what Suzanne just shared, just tag them and they can watch live or later very, very easily. We also want to tell you about our show, the New York Times Read Along, where I read aloud the Sunday New York Times like a crazy person with interesting folks. This Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern with the past president of the Society of Professional Obituary Writers. You may not have known there's such a thing. And the obit writer of the Chicago Sun-Times will be with us. We'll talk a little bit Sun-Times, we'll talk a little bit of New York Times, but please join us. And this past weekend, Neil Parekh was in the chair as he interviewed the New York Times book review deputy editor, Tina Jordan, about the first 125 years of the New York Times book review. It was a fantastic conversation. I learned so much. I was so jealous that I couldn't be there live for the interview myself. But everybody, please go onto my YouTube and you can watch the archives of this, or join us Sundays at 8:30 a.m. live or later. And a reminder that my Substack is sreenet.substack.com. You can sign up. If you get it already, please open and read the newsletter. We have a great tech tip from Bob Anthony every week. We're very proud of his work in it as well. And this is brought to you by Armory Square Ventures, which is a VC firm that talks about creativity coming from anywhere. And Suzanne, I think you should know about these folks as well, and I should connect you to them with the work that you're doing. And so with that, let's bring back on stage our guest, Suzanne Althoff, who is my former journalism school classmate, and she very kindly didn't drop any bad stories of my history here, so I appreciate that. And her book is called Launching While Female, Smashing the System That Holds Women Entrepreneurs Back. And it's an expose of the gender gap in entrepreneurship and a roadmap for a more inclusive and economically successful future for us all. And hi, Suzanne, welcome back. And I asked you to give us your reflections on Facebook and where we are, speaking of entrepreneurs, and you mentioned his name a couple of times already, and then talk to us about your book, and then we'll let you get back to your evening.
Thank you, Sree. Okay, so the Facebook question, I'm going to answer it in a way that probably you're not expecting. I mean, well, you probably are expecting me to say I'm deeply troubled by what we're learning about Facebook as a journalist, as a person who's interested in startups, as a person who is interested in the health and safety of young people. So I could go on and on, but here's my maybe unconventional answer to the Facebook question. There is an interesting conversation going on about women founders, women entrepreneurs, and a question of, do they create different kinds of companies? Are there other benefits? Just, I mentioned innovation and jobs so far, but do women tend to create companies that do more social good, that think about fair wages, that think about the impact in the community, that think about work-life balance, or you're using in your newsletter, work-life harmony. So there's questions, do female-founded companies place a higher premium on these than companies founded, let's say, by 20-something-year-old men? I think it's something that deserves more research and more conversation. And I think there's a relevance to Facebook because Facebook, personally, I think Facebook should be better run, and it would be interesting for me to see a company like that run by someone with different experiences and a different point of view.
And to be fair, there is a very senior woman there who was recruited specifically to be the adult in the room many years ago in obviously the way that's all come together. We don't know how much she has helped or hurt the overall story, but it's certainly fascinating to see, and her own story is so interesting, and the movement she's built with Lean In, and so much more. So now let's just talk about your book.
Thank you so much. So the reason why I wrote the book, I wrote it really for two kinds of readers. I wrote it for the person who considers themselves an aspiring entrepreneur, and I wanted this person to read stories of people who encountered hurdles but found a way around them and still built really successful companies. And I wanted that reader to find inspiration from these stories. And then I wanted also a book that would simply, the person who doesn't want to start a business but cares very deeply about who are business owners in our community and who is building wealth in our community and who is making decisions about what kinds of businesses we have. For that person, I wanted them to see how they could play a role, what policies they could push for, what things they could do as an individual, what things they could do from a community point of view. I conclude the book with actionable items. I didn't want it to all be, oh my goodness, women couldn't get a co-signature for their loans. I wanted people to leave saying, I think I can see a way forward, and I'm going to push for that way forward because there's going to be a benefit for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Suzanne. We're very grateful to you. We wish you the very best with the book and your publishing courses that you teach at Emerson College. We didn't even get a chance to talk about your incredible career at the Boston Globe and everywhere else that you worked. So we'll have to bring you back and hear some more. But thank you so much, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today, Sree. It was wonderful.
And thank